everybody, and welcome on board Ocean Harmony. I'm Jay,
And I'm Rod.
and we are giving you a bit of a rundown of what it was like to take possession of our boat in La Rochelle from Fountaine Pajot and from our dealer, which is Multi-Hull Solutions in Australia.
Yeah, so Roms, the dealer's agent, picked us up at the train station about lunchtime and took us to the boat.
We arrived at the boat and it was a magnificent sight. This is probably 6 years in the making, and so it was really lovely to see our boat, and we decided that we wanted to stay on board that first night. So we basically went from the train to the boat and stayed on board from then on.
Yep, so Roms needed to introduce us to some of the systems before we could move on board. Those systems included the water, the 12-volt switch panel, the Victron lithium system, as well as how to use the heads.
Once he'd given us a basic handover, he took us then to the shops because we'd brought with us some sheets and obviously our clothes and some equipment for the boat, but we still needed to get some of the basics. We did not fit the boat out before we came to live on it with homewares, and so we needed to get some pillows, some towels, duvets or doonas, and obviously some food. So we headed off down to the shops, grabbed a couple of basics,
And then came back to the boat. So it was getting fairly late in the afternoon by that time, so we then headed out for a meal in La Rochelle. We had no food or cooking utensils on the boat, and we also went through with Roms just before that what our plans were in terms of sail training and the testing of the boat.
Yeah. So the following day, we basically had a couple of things that we went through with Roms. We did a handover of some more of the systems, and then we did
We went through the list of your Fountaine Pajot options,
Yep.
so that we checked off each of the options that we had chosen, and then went through to make sure that all our aftermarket work was done as well.
Yep.
And then we made the plans that we were going to be doing the sail trials the following day.
Yeah. So the sail trial or the sail testing is basically where you have a skipper who is appointed by the dealer or the dealer's representative come on board the boat and take the boat out to put it through its paces to make sure that everything is working before the boat is handed over to you. So that means that we were essentially passengers.
Yep.
And we just sat and watched while the skipper and the Multi-Hull Solutions and Fountaine Pajot representatives basically went through and made sure that everything was working adequately.
Yeah, so we were shown a lot of things.
Yep.
It was pretty much a don't touch day too much. So that this is the Genoa, this is the mainsail, this is the electric winch. All these things are working. They filled out the Jenica, installed some of the Jenica gear,
The hardware.
and pretty much run the engines, made sure everything went forwards, backwards, those sort of things, and then pretty much came in just after lunch. And then we headed off to the shops, I think.
I think we did. It feels like we spent every afternoon at the shops. I think we probably did.
Yeah,
actually.
the good thing was the shops were open till about 8 p.m. and most of our work around the boat was finished by about 4.
Yeah, it's a short bus ride from La Rochelle Marina or Minimus Marina out to Poulabru. I think it's Poulabru, where the major shopping area is. So it's about €2 a bus ride. And it's about 20 minutes. So it's really convenient to be able to go and buy the things that we needed. And the first thing that we needed to get on board
Was a coffee machine.
So in the shopping area, there's a lovely big Darty electronics store. There's also a Leroy Merlin hardware store, and of course there's lots of specialty stores and homeware stores, as well as a very big supermarket. So everything that you want to be able to provision your boat is available within 2 blocks.
Yeah, so that afternoon where we picked up the coffee machine, we also picked, I think, a soda stream.
Yep.
And
Cookware.
some cookware and some other things. And at that point, we never hired a car while we were over here at all. We grabbed an Uber back just because we had too many things
to carry on the bus. Yeah. When I mentioned before about Leroy Merlin, Leroy Merlin is a hardware store that is like a composite Bunnings /IKEA/David Jones. It is probably the most wonderful hardware experience I've ever had in my life. I know that sounds weird, but it was awesome.
Not quite as cheap as Bunnings.
No,
but in terms of the materials, it's much bigger.
Yeah, so there was 200 aisles of product lines in Leroy Merlin. You may find that there's only one brand of a particular item, but usually that's not an issue. So instead of having 4 or 5 brands of nails and screws, you've got one brand of nails and screws, or you've got 2 brands of nails and screws.
Yeah. So we picked up some basic tools from Leroy Merlin, and I think some different adapters and extension leads and just bits and pieces. Yep. I think we went to Leroy Merlin 4 or 5 times because as we lived on the boat for that first 2 weeks in La Rochelle, we realised there was a few little things that would be come in handy.
Yeah. So one of the things that Multi-Hull Solutions have, which I found to be very, very useful, is they have a series of kits that you can purchase with your equipment for the boat, or you can use that kit list to help you frame what it is that you need to equip your boat.
In terms of chandlery equipment.
In terms of chandlery, in terms of hardware, and in terms of safety.
Yep. So Roms was able to set us up with a VAT-free account at the Chandler. We used the lists from Multi-Hull Solutions together with the list of safety equipment that we got from the European website to make the basis of the safety equipment and the equipment we needed for the boat.
Yeah. So some of this is a little different to what we were expecting. We knew we need to have an EPIRB, and we actually bought our EPIRB from Australia. We found that the EPIRBs in Europe were about €500 for an EPIRB that we paid 350 Australian dollars for. So we bought our EPIRB from Australia, we bought our life jackets from Australia, but some of the other safety equipment that's required before you're able to take your boat out included a set of flares, which are not just a standard set of flares, they're offshore flares. So they have the 3 colours, plus they also have parachute flares. It's also a requirement that you have a set of bungs on board. So we had to grab some bungs and
a tow rope. And the tow rope needs to be 4 times the length of your boat. So it's very, very long. And in fact, it was about €500 in itself.
Just for the tow rope, yeah. So it is really important to make sure that you go through the lists that's recommended from the European safety authorities if you don't go through a dealer like Multi-Hull Solutions, to make sure that you do have all the requirements that you are required to have before you leave.
So some of the things that we bought from Australia, we were able to identify pricing in Europe. So we knew what we were going to pay because we were able to find out what the local chandler was. We were able to see online prices, and we could then compare with what we got in Australia.
Yep.
For example, I got a Helly Hansen offshore jacket from Anaconda for about 300 Australian dollars on special for Christmas, and over here for the same jacket you're paying €500 to €600.
Yeah, so it is worthwhile doing your research before you come. As we might have said before, we flew with JAL Airlines, and that allowed us to have 2 23-kilo bags each of underhold luggage, and then 2 10-kilo cabin luggage bags. And we chose that airline because we didn't want to actually have to send things from Australia to the boat. We felt that that was an unnecessary cost. But the other thing that Rod found
was I've seen other people who have had things shipped, and there's been delays in that shipping because perhaps it went around South Africa rather than through the Suez, and their equipment didn't arrive for months after they had arrived here.
And so that can delay your departure from the port. So we chose to bring most of our stuff with us that we knew that we wanted to have on board the boat, that we knew that we wouldn't be able to get in France, or that was going to be more expensive here. And from that perspective, that is exactly why we chose JAL. But they were a fantastic airline, and I would be very happy to fly with them again.
Yep. So the next day we moved on to our sail training.
Yes.
And day 1 was all about manoeuvring the boat under engines.
Yeah, so Minima's marina is a very congested marina. It is the largest marina in Europe, so there is capacity to house 35,000 boats on water in the marina. So that means there's quite a lot of traffic. Doing our sail training, manoeuvring in the marina presented a number of challenges, which was absolutely brilliant because I hadn't come across a congested marina area before, and this was something that we needed to understand pretty carefully so that we didn't cause damage to ourselves or others.
So I had already done my 5-day day skipper course, so on a catamaran, so I had some basic understandings on how the two engines work together so that you can spin the boat and how you can turn on both your rudders and your engines. So that was really helpful. That gave me a great starting point. Jay hadn't had that experience,
No.
so it was a little bit daunting for her.
I was going from a monohull where I think the last time that I'd done consistent training was in my 20s, and I'm now in my 50s. So therefore that sort of time frame, the size of the vessel, the difference between a monohull and a catamaran, all of those things were things that were important to understand, the differences, and to have a skipper with us to be able to guide us through that process was really, really beneficial.
Yeah, my sail experience was skiffs when I was younger, together with some club racing over the last few years. But that certainly did help, but we did feel that when we arrived at the boat, we were certainly newbies.
Yeah. So our first day of sail training included docking, as Rod said, and that of course includes someone being down there to lasso the hitches, cleats, and to be able to make sure that the vessel is brought in safely, manoeuvring around other boats, so basically reverse parking. It was a very stressful day, I think, for me anyway.
Oh yeah, look, Ocean and Harmy did get one little love kiss when I came into the dock a little bit hard.
A little bit too firm.
But
no damage.
All in all, it was a very good day. And day 2 was all about the sailing.
It was, yeah.
So we got, we have a electric winch on the mainsail. So of course the first thing you're going to do is get your mainsail up. Jay and I were thoroughly trained on how to use the electric winch, how to make sure that we watch the lines, including particularly things like the reefing lines, because if you've got the reefing lines stuck, or maybe you've got them in a jammer, and you're trying to raise the mainsail with the electric winch, things can go wrong pretty quickly.
Yeah. The sail training was excellent. Our skipper that came with us was a gentleman by the name of Gavoltis, and he was very user-friendly, very easy to work with, and very precise in what it was that he was trying to teach us. And so we learnt a lot from him.
So the day that we went sailing, we had really good winds. La Rochelle Harbour is well protected. Even though we had 15 to 20 knots, it was very, very flat conditions. So the boat performed really well. We learned getting the genoa out, how to tack, what winch to use for the genoa, and also later in the afternoon, as the winds dropped a little, we got our Jenica out.
Yeah. So this was beautiful because we got to see our Jenica in its full glory. It's a beautiful big blue sail, and it has our logo, Ocean Harmony logo, on the sail itself. But it also gave us a more confidence to be able to put the Jenica out, because it is a different type of sail to the harder course of Genoa, and there was some apprehension about, making sure that it went around shrouds and so forth. So that process was really good, learning all the sails that we have at the time, and it's built our confidence level up so that when we went out on the boat on our own, we were comfortable to be able to utilise those sails.
So as part of the package, Multi-Hull Solutions offers the 2 sail trainings, but I'm sure that there are certainly other days are available, and there's plenty of competent skippers there offering training.
Absolutely. Multi-Hull did actually say to us that we could purchase extra days if we needed to. We stayed with 2. I would, in hindsight, now say that the 2 days of sail training was great. We went out on our own for 1 day before we decided to leave the harbour. I think in hindsight we probably should have gone out for 2 or 3 days, just to build up our skills together. before we decided to leave the harbour for heading down towards Spain and Portugal.
Okay, the next day we had an open day out at La Rochelle. Fountaine Pajot were having their annual open day where
Yep.
people could come to the town and see the boats and take them for a sea trial.
This was fantastic because it allowed us to be able to see the other boats that were there, but it also allowed us to get in contact with other people who were either in the process of buying boats or had bought a boat. It allowed us to get back in touch with Greg and Rebecca from Multi-Hull Solutions, and it was a nice social event.
Yep, so we had a sort of, let's call it hors d'oeuvres and drinks around the marina, all complimentary of Fountaine Pajot. And we had a chat to some of the Fountaine Pajot representatives, and I think even one of the owners was even there.
Yeah.
And that was a lovely night. I would say that we probably didn't do as many social events as we perhaps saw on the videos that were about the handover, but I think that everything was really busy, everything was rushed, and also I don't think there was many people taking delivery of boats at the time as we were.
Yeah, that is one thing I will say is that what we had seen on the videos from Multi-Hull Solutions prior to signing over to purchase our boat was a couple of years ago, and that was obviously before COVID. So things have changed a little bit with the getting people together and meeting other skippers and meeting other crew and
That's
other
right.
owners. I think that's changed since COVID.
Yeah, we made our own efforts using some of the networking that we had, FP owners group and that, to find people who were picking up their boats from whether it be multi-hull or other dealers, just to catch up, have a little look at what they've done on their boat, and start creating those networks.
Yeah, and we met a couple of people in La Rochelle. Glenn and Sonia particularly, who have been fantastic people to be in contact with, to understand how they're going with their boat, to get some ideas from, and we've also met over the networks. We've met Doug and Karen from Cora, who we've also learned an awful lot from as well.
Yeah, they've got an Isla as well, and they've been able to give us a lot of tips. Now, after that, we continued our outfitting of the boat, and also visited a lot of the sites at La Rochelle.
We did. I have to say, if you get the chance to go to La Rochelle, it is absolutely worth it. It is a beautiful seaside town. When we visited, they were actually having a Francophile cinema foray one weekend, and then they also had a music festival, a Francophile music festival, another weekend. So the place was really thronging with people, but it didn't feel crowded, it didn't feel overwhelming. The people in La Rochelle are lovely. There is so much to see and do, and there's heaps of restaurants and bars and cafes. So a couple of things that we did when we were in La Rochelle.
We visited the aquarium, and that was fantastic. It's one of the best aquariums I've been to.
Yeah.
Probably better than the Sydney Aquarium.
I would agree.
And such great value. I think it was only €12 or...
Yeah, it was €12 a person.
And it was busy. We had to queue and wait. So probably getting there early might help. And other things was the Maritime Museum.
Yep.
That was fantastic, as well as the Natural History Museum. So getting around La Rochelle, how did you find that?
Wow. La Rochelle is such an organised place. So the bus services are excellent, as I mentioned before. It's about €2 per bus ride. The buses are frequent, they are on time, they cover everywhere that you need to go in La Rochelle and its environs. The first Saturday of every month is free, and I can't recommend the public transport service in La Rochelle highly enough. But the best thing about the public transport is the access to bikes. So all around La Rochelle there are bike stands, and the bike stands allow you to pick up a bike using an app, have it billed to your credit card, ride the bike on a timer, and then drop the bike at any other station anywhere around La Rochelle.
So in terms of why we picked up the boat in La Rochelle, we have had friends saying, why don't you bring it home? There was some significant savings associated with both the shipping of the boat as well as no paying GST, but we really did want to experience the European cruising ground.
Yes. So it's roughly about $100,000 to have your boat shipped to Australia on top of its retail price. Plus, then you have import duties and you have GST. So it can be somewhere up around $200,000 to have your boat brought from La Rochelle across to Australia. But as Rod said, the main thing that we wanted to do was experience something that we were not used to. And so therefore we wanted to get our skills up by sailing in the Med, experience the culture of France, Spain, Italy, etc. And then once we built our skills up, then we want to actually go across and bring the boat back to Australia eventually.
Yep. And so how did you find the overall process of buying a boat and
picking it up overseas? Look, to be honest, I think this was the best way to do it. I mean, I'm saying that as someone who's done it and gone, well, you know, I'm not going to sit and say that we did the wrong thing. But our process was very straightforward, very easy. We do know other people who've had more difficulty in getting their boats, or they've had more delays in getting their boats. One of the big advantages that we had was Rod did an awful lot of research before we left Australia and before we committed to anything on the boat. So he had gone through and looked at what's the difference between a soft top bimini and a hard top bimini. What's the difference between having the lithium that is, the battery pack that is provided, or the lithium that we thought was going to be more suited to our needs. And similar things with our anchor. That was another big choice. Do we go with the anchor that is standard with the boat or recommended for the boat, or do we go with the anchor that we end up choosing, which is the ultra anchor? Doing all that research early saved us a lot of time and effort when we got here, and making sure that all of those pieces were in place before we committed to turning up to the boat also meant we had no delays. So our boat was technically ready in April, May.
They came out of the factory at the end of April, and we turned up to pick up the boat in the end of June, which gave the dealers plenty of time to do the aftermarket work that we wanted. And we have heard stories about people turning up to the boat and things not being ready, or alternatively something's not working properly. We never experienced any of that, and that was fantastic.
Do you choose a skipper or not? One school of thought is that, you know, we were newbies. Sailing experience was different to being on a catamaran on a regular basis. Our backgrounds were quite different, and so I was a bit apprehensive and thought maybe we should get a skipper to help take us across the Bay of Biscay, because I know that area can be quite finicky at times. But we chose in the end not to, and it was for two reasons. One, financially we were starting to get to the point we were concerned that we weren't going to have enough money for the rest of our trip according to our budget. But secondly, we also felt that we needed to start to do this together, and to start to learn to sail together. And having a skipper may have been helpful, but it may also have meant that we didn't learn those things as adequately as we needed to.
And we did have a really lovely weather window for the most, that really we pretty much motored for 2 days across Biscay to Gijón in Spain.
Yeah, but in the end we decided that we would knock it out ourselves, and I think it went
really well.
Really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a look at the video crossing the Bay of Biscay. Oh well, I think that covers our experience in picking up the boat in La Rochelle.
Yeah, it's certainly an experience that I've enjoyed, and as I said, for us it went very smoothly. Allowing that little bit of extra time does give you some free play in case things don't quite go to plan. But all in all, we were in La Rochelle for 2 weeks from the time that we arrived to the time that we left, to start our adventures on our own. So thanks so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time on board Ocean Harmony.